Welcome to pay hearing here in Golden Bay Service Centre on Deputy Stuart Bryant. The Mayor is an apology for the day, so I'll be running the meeting. So I'll ask Councillor Hill to do the opening karakia, please.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ki mahana a pia koutou, ki te whiawhai chair, a karakia tātou. Whakataki te hau ki te uru, whakataki te hau ki te tunga, kia mā kene ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, he ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Speaks of winds ceasing, cold air and glorious dawn.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so we'll move to some housekeeping first before we move to the meeting proper. So just check that those on Zoom can hear us and we can hear you. Someone can indicate, please. Mark, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Thank you. So just a reminder for those of you on Zoom that microphone's muted and hands up for questions, please. Thank you.
Just one question.
For those of us here in the room, the bathroom facilities, I'm not sure they're publicly available back below.
You need a swipe card.
Swipe card. I'm sure the county staff will need for these books. If the fire alarm is activated, instruct attendees to move to the car park area at the rear of the building. Unless the fire's back there, of course. And then we'll go out on the street. And if it's an earthquake, drop, cover and hold. So apologies, we have Mayor Tim King and Councillor Dan Shilcrass. Would someone like to move that those apologies accepted? Move Councillor Hill, seconded Councillor Mailing. All those in favour will say aye. Aye. Against, the resolution is carried. Thank you. So in a moment, we'll move to the submitters and work through them in the order that we have them listed here. At 4.5 minutes, Councillor Mackenzie will ring the bell, which you've all heard, and then a final bell at 5 minutes. So if you want to leave some time for questions, the first bell is to give you a bit of an indication that there's 30 seconds left. So our first presenter this morning is Jane. Hang on, we've got a question. Councillor Green.
Yeah, I think you've got the video turned off, Stuart, because I can't enable it.
Can't hear anything.
I think you have the video turned off. Can you hear me?
Is the end or end?
He's not. Maybe ask Rob to speak. Yeah, there it is. Oh,
Rob, can you talk to us and see if we can hear you, please? So we can't hear. Shannon, can you put your microphone on and let us see if we can hear you, please?
No, that's all.
Seems like no one can hear us.
We can't hear them.
Yeah, I think the host has the settings switched off.
No, we don't have chats on now.
I'm
Don't use chat.
through the chair on face. It's not this week.
Don't wait for rain.
I'll just check.
Rob's telling us he can hear and see, but not talk on video.
Oh, what was it?
Rob is saying he can hear and see.
Yeah.
Rob hears the so but nothing. He's not able to get to us.
Councillor Grady, we're assuming that you can.
Mark says the host has the settings switched off.
Correct.
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for switching the settings on. You had them switched.
Thank you for letting us know so promptly, Councillor Grady. We appreciate it.
Maybe useful to have comments available in these sessions for these type of events. Thank you.
Right, so that leads us to the first speaker, who is Jane Peterson, on behalf of Abbeyfield Golden Bay Committee. So if you'd like to come up to the table, we've got David with you, and yeah, speak to us there. You will have to speak loudly because you've got people in front of you and behind you. Unfortunately, they don't have a microphone. So just when you're ready to do it. Warm welcome, and you heard me say about the 5 minutes. Thank you.
So thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So we bring to your attention yet again Abbeyfield's rate bill basically, and we are very concerned that 50% of the $12,500 that we're paying is actually PAN charges alone. Now, David is the chair of Abbeyfield, as I, and Motueka, as I am chair in Golden Bay. We're both basically the same thing. What has become pretty clear to me is that we are being charged a commercial rate for these PAN charges, but we are not a commercial entity. We are a household. We are a charity, we run as a charity, we have a household, albeit it is a large household with 11 residents, but nevertheless it is a household. And so it appears that probably Abbeyfield and both Motueka and Golden Bay have been charged this commercial rate throughout. And we don't think that's all. Because, you know, the fact is we're not making any money to feed anybody's pockets. All money that comes out of Abbeyfield is paid to Abbeyfield, stays with Abbeyfield. We are all volunteers who do work with managing the house. And so I guess that's where it sits. We're a community housing provider. So, I mean, it's all sort of there. And we are a charity, it's an incorporated society. We provide low-cost housing for elderly people in Golden Bay, which is an asset for the community. And that's how we want to keep it, because it allows people who cannot afford to go into overpriced rest homes to be there. And it's, yeah, and we feel that we've been really slammed by council actually and pay this very high rate.
And the mayor and councillors, we made a sort of a joint submission from what we get Abbeyfield and Golden Bay Field together. That's why I'm here to give support to Jane. In Motueka, our rates 12,700, and the wastewater PAN charges 6,500. So over 50% of our rates, as in Golden Bay, are on the wastewater PAN charge. We presented together at the annual plan last year, got a very good, and the confidence we got from that hearing was the staff will consider our situation in 12 months following. So we're here again just to ask the same question. Please give us some consideration. We're paying a very high wastewater PAN charge, which we think as a single household is contrary to your policy. So it's a matter of considering that and going back to us with an answer.
Thank you. Nothing further. Happy to take questions. Yes. So just one from yourself, firstly. You do have 13 or so pens though, do you?
Yes,
Yes.
we do.
Yeah, because I'm not sure that we have a dip in this. We may have to get staff to look at that. We have a commercial differential rates for commercial. I think it just depends on the number of pens. I know there is a differential for schools. I'm not sure about volume, but I'll come to councillor Keating.
Thank you very much, Jane and David, for coming in. Do you know, I mean, Abbey Fields, it's a national, international organisation. So do you have any comparisons with other councils across New Zealand?
Well, I did this a year ago and I cannot be completely up to date now, but we were paying more rates than anyone else in the country.
Right, it was more a question of the pat.
Well, they don't do it this way.
Okay,
See,
okay.
so it's all different.
Yeah.
So, some have, water rates and waste rates, and you've got to pull them all together, but no,
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Butler.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered what do the residents contribute in terms of finances? Do they pay an ongoing rate or do they buy a place?
No, they just buy, well, they don't buy anything, they rent.
They rent.
They rent and they pay for our house, they pay $45 a week to rent, and that covers everything. So they basically, all they need is enough for the shampoo and the soap and even, just those sort of things.
Thank you. That appears to have brought us to the end of the briefing. So thanks very much. Well done. It's a very good example for the day. Thanks so much for taking the time, and particularly you, David, for coming over. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So we'll move to our next speaker, who is Cynthia McConaughey, on behalf of Forest and Bird Golden Bay. Welcome, Cynthia. You're well used to
Kia ora everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning and to expand on some of the requests in our submission on the long-term plan. Forest and Bird would like to see funding set aside in this plan for reserves to start work on the development of a shared path from Takaka Township along the Takaka River to the Takaka River mouth. The Takaka River is beautiful and it should be seen as a resource. Elsewhere, it would be the centrepiece of the town. While we recognise the obstacles to a river walk in terms of land ownership and flooding, they are not insurmountable. A shared path would be a wonderful asset for visitors and residents, while also bringing economic benefits to businesses in town. We've asked Council to fund a full-time dog control officer in Golden Bay. It isn't enough for an enforcement officer to respond solely to complaints. Dog prohibited areas on our coastline need to be patrolled over the summer holidays and on holiday weekends. Our trail cameras show dog owners ignoring council and Department of Conservation signage, taking their dogs into protected areas and harassing nesting shorebirds, putting eggs and chicks at risk. We also receive reports of the harassment of New Zealand fur seals in protected areas. The cost of dog registration is insignificant compared to the cost of owning a dog. Registration fees need to rise and reflect the requirements of Council's dog control policy and the Dog Control Act. They need to cover the cost of a full-time enforcement officer in Golden Bay. We've asked Council in our submission to fund a series of community education presentations focusing on shorebird protection. Threats to shorebirds come from dogs, vehicles, domestic cats, walkers, and horse riders, and they occur due to ignorance. They could be carried out with the assistance of ornithologists in the workshop, David Melville or Rob Schuppard, both of whom have worked with your senior resource scientists through the James. Target communities would be the Eastern Bay, Takaka, Rangihaiata, Cattons Rock, Parakara, Milnthorpe, Collingwood and Pakawara. This is a recommendation of the Nicky MacArthur report commissioned by council, management issued the options for coastal birds and treatment, and we're asking council to follow this up. Signage alone will not reduce disturbance. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you. Happy to take questions. Are there any questions? Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks, Cynthia. Do you have any idea of what it would cost to construct the path? The cycling
No, I
path?
don't, but I was hoping that if it was a 10-year plan, if something could be allocated every year and it could be for free. You know, I wouldn't expect you to do it all in 1 year. But, you know, I mean, I think the first one is probably consultation with landowners. Sort of trying to move it forward from there.
Thank you. No further. Right, Councillor Butler.
What do you think about the fencing of nesting areas in coastal areas?
Well, we do that
Do you
at
think
later
that
time
works?
and on a sand sticks. And we do it with stakes and polytape and stop signage. It does work there until somebody takes a dog down and then leaves it off lead. I mean, this is the problem. We have people going down to our nesting sites and they're in prohibited areas. And there's very good signage saying protected area, $300 sign applies. And I think, you know, if we could get a dog control officer to patrol, I mean, the Parapara Inlet was a big one this summer with, what, 20 critically endangered black-back gulls nesting there, around 80 red-billed gulls nesting there, with 50 little fluffy chicks this high, you know, that can't fly. It's sort of sitting there waiting for dogs to come in, and the birds get very stressed. We had a dog kill at Millsville, a variable oyster catcher chick that wasn't old enough to fly. So it is a problem. I thought if there was someone taking a walk along there, could talk to people, give a warning, and you can find fines.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much for your submission. Thank you. We'll move next to Mrs. Debbie Pearson.
Well, thank you for the
Welcome.
opportunity to present to you today. I'm running through a number of topics, so let's start with the forestry asset. I just noted that the potential sale of forestry assets is listed under the heading of financial sustainability, and I'd encourage council to think much wider than that when considering whether some or all of the assets should be sold or maintained. I know that to date these assets have been a very good investment for council, but as our climatic events become more extreme, pine forest becomes a risky asset. Long dry summers, you have the risk of fire. Rain events, you have the risk of infrastructure because of slash issues like we saw in Hawke's Bay. So I'd encourage council to consider whether pine forests on the hills would be better replaced over time with native forest. This provides a better long-term environment for the watershed, it lowers the fire risk, it continues to sequester carbon, and it provides a long-term stable habitat for our Indigenous biodiversity. On to transport. Now's a good time, I think, to be bold with our investment in public transport and active transport infrastructure. For buses, there's a tipping point when it becomes more convenient to use the bus than the car. In Wellington, where I was, you could see that a lot more frequent services, people would use the buses for commuting. So again, I'd really encourage council, you've made an excellent investment in your e-buses, up the frequency and we can reduce congestion and fossil fuel use on the road. Similarly with the cycle, the active transport infrastructure, safe connected infrastructure encourages more people to walk and cycle, so it's better for the health of people and the planet. So on that note, on cycle infrastructure, I'd like to make a specific mention of the Port Tarakoe upgrade. The planned development at the port is going to result in significantly greater heavy truck use. And this needs to be accompanied by investment in safe infrastructure for vulnerable users. That's our pedestrians and our cyclists. I think council has an obligation to ensure that that infrastructure is safe for all users. And at the moment, it would be inappropriate once those heavy trucks start. On climate change and resilience, I encourage council to make climate change mitigation and adaptation a priority for our spending. So that would be moving to option B. Investing proactively in resilient infrastructure is more cost effective, we know, than waiting for the problem to hit and cleaning up the mess. So I want to congratulate council on an excellent climate change response strategy and action plan. Many great initiatives in that, and in particular on behalf of Mohua 2042 Trust and myself, I applaud the intention to partner with other organisations to leverage each other's strength in projects. As a community, this will allow us to deliver more than any one of us can do on our own. And on that topic, I'd also note that we strongly support the continuation of the community grant scheme. This outlay in grants enables many-fold greater value through harnessing volunteer group effort, and it engenders a more connected and more resilient community because we're supporting initiatives where we can all work together for the common good. So we strongly support the continuation of that, which I know is also council's recommendation. And finally, on behalf of myself and Mohua 2042, I'd like to endorse the formation of Te Tahi Community Development Agency and support their application for funds. So this agency will provide much needed coordination and facilitation of shared resources for the for-purpose sector. I believe our communities are held together by our many volunteers and our not-for-profit groups. And this agency will help to allow them to make an even greater impact on community wellbeing. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, Councillor Murray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. So, excuse me. So I get the support and invest more. So does that mean also happy in a 12 to 50% rate increase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. I think that it's better for us to invest now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? If not, thank you very much, Terry. Thanks for coming along this morning. We'll move to Abby if you're ready to go now. Go on to make your music.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak today and for everyone making the trip over and coming to Golden Bay. It's lovely to have you here. So first we'd like to acknowledge that we appreciate the challenges that the council has faced, and we acknowledge all the work and thought that has gone into the long-term plan. We have noted the lack of funding for projects for Golden Bay Mohua, but we acknowledge the funding that we've previously received for projects like the Rec Park, the Grandstand, the Tākaka to Pohara Shed Park. So thank you for those. We would like to reiterate our support for the pool facility at Motueka. This will be a fantastic asset, not only for Motueka, but for Golden Bay as well. We would, however, like to see included for future projects and thinking of the ceiling of the shed path between Tākaka and Pohara, a skate and bike park for Tākaka, and the continued planning for resilience for our district. As you know, we did the one road in to Golden Bay, and when that was taken out a few years ago, it did pose some challenges. So we'd like that continued resilience planning, the continued funding of the climate change planning. We would also like to acknowledge the continued support that you have given to Port Tarakai. That is much appreciated as well for our community. We'd like to encourage your continued support for the community board and the board taking a central role as the voice of the community, looking forward to things like the dog bylaw hearings and things like that. For Grant, have I missed? We talked about a lot about resilience planning for our district.
Yes, so close to the think what our submission said. We do raise.
Do have a topic.
We do. Yeah, because there was something in there about the rate going up and should.
Oh yes, and we definitely do
Council
not support the selling of that.
No, definitely not. And strongly, we're a voice for the community, and from the feedback I've had from people I've spoken to, our submission aligns very well with many people in the community. From perspective.
Which is about all we have really, but yeah, I appreciate all your time.
Thank you. I'll see if there's any questions. Do we have any? Just one from the self, Abby. Did you say seal the shared pathway or the
Yes.
sea? Yeah, that might be a step too far, but even a compacted, better surface.
And
would be
absolutely, yeah, an improved surface,
Something
a
that's-
wider surface.
Yeah, something that's at least usable. It's not actually that usable, according to cyclists.
Yeah, certainly I was on a gravel road the other day, the lumpy, it's really
Yeah,
frustrating.
it is, and I acknowledge that staff are working towards solutions as well, investigating different options. But again, the lack of funding is curtailing people movement. Also, more safety barriers between the road and the pathway that would stop people parking on our cycle pathway, and as a safety measure for people using it.
Correct, well, it is quite close along there.
We've all seen many cars parked there, out come the cameras.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, thank you very much. Thanks both for coming on this morning. Appreciate that. We'll move to William Wallace. I thought it should be Bill. Is Bill here?
Thank you for your time today. I moved to Golden Bay 23 years ago, and since then I've not noticed anything done to the launching ground of Port Jericho other than some cement patches. In 2019, there was a big plan, lots of expense put into a marina. Obviously, well, in my opinion, the guy had never been on a boat or to a marina. The only boats there protected by any kind of breakwater or the super yachts there, which won't be owned by us around here. In 2010, attempting to get back in the water, I fell off the drawbar of my trailer because there's not even a rock to tie onto there, where 95% of the marinas in all of New Zealand have a floating launching dock. We have nothing. So for the last many decades, the TDC has been charging increased rates over and over again to launch a boat there. Now, some might say, well, just harden up and learn how to launch a boat, but you've got to either stand on the wet drawbar of the boat or enter the water to launch a boat, unless you have two people. Myself, I like going out sailing by myself. And the first time I launched a boat there, I fell off and injured my leg so bad I took the boat home. Second time, when the wind's blowing, when it is, when you go out sailing, you've got high windage. I almost lost the bow line, and if I had, it gone into the rocks. So the increase in charges up to $200 a year, when your TDC is talking about, we need another feasibility study to make sure it's going to be feasible. Well, we were promised way back in 2019 that a floating launching dock was going to be built there. I continue to get words like probably, maybe, hopeful from Nick Chin that'll be done someday after the commercial aspect of it's done. And when I look at the cost of $1.5 million to build a floating launching dock, when I've actually personally built docks of the same sort that Motueka has, I have not got what it would really cost them. But to look at $1.5 million to build a 40 to 50 meter launching dock down there, it appears that 120,000, or excuse me, 1.2 million of that is done for consents and design and plan and this and that. Now, it's been many years. We have had nothing out there. We still don't even have a toilet. We got to walk 1.5 kilometers to get a toilet. That promise has been broken. We just like to see something done out there rather than the $6 to $12 million that has been found to put in toilets, laundry, dining, and kitchen facilities for the commercial side. It just seems so one-sided. We're not getting anything out there. I bought a very nice Snow X25 over a year ago. I paid $800 insurance for it to be able to put it in the yard down there. The yard fees have gone up to $200. The average mom and pop can't justify that. The mooring fees. It seems like the whole commercial aspect down there is being supported off the backs of the recreational boaters that are they're leaving, they're being driven out of there. I've got a lot more to say, but that's pretty much wraps it up.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Thank you for coming along today, and a fellow votee in the same situation as yourself, I sympathise with you. But looking on Google Map here, just around the corner from the ramp, there's a floating platform.
Where's that?
The territory. There's the ramp, there's the floating platform.
Yeah, that's for the book club. I don't believe it'd be usable at all for the general public.
So you can
I belong to the boat club. I wasn't aware of that, but that's the wind rolls in there. What it's going to do is blow your boat right into the rocks.
maybe I can talk to you afterwards, but I'm a bit confused about what you're after now.
I'm looking at the long, large ramp where the proposed marina is. That was supposed to have a floating launching dock.
Right.
Which has not been even built. The last I heard was there will be another feasibility study done to see if it's going to pay for itself.
Thank you.
We can discuss that. Kerry East Hope. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you for coming, having me. My name's Terry Easthope. I'm here to speak to the proposed 200% landing fee increase at Takaka Aerodrome. I've got over 40 years experience in aviation. I've owned 9 airlines, ran several small aerodromes myself. I now conduct fixed wing training out at Takaka for recreational pilots who have their own aeroplanes, and also for the Golden Bay Flying Club, and I fly recreation myself. New Zealand has an amazing aviation history, and it's a spectacular place to fly. The aviation community here is built on the commitment to and the love of aviation by a small, close-knit community of enthusiastic participants. There's no fortunes being made in aviation, and pilots in general are not welcome people. Today, I could speak to the notion being embraced by TDC Enterprise and Property that the ratepayers should not be subsidising the Takaka aerodrome, that the users should pay. I concede that perhaps the commercial users should be levied differently to the ratepayer users, but the idea that a very few recreational users of a public reserve facility should shoulder the costs is not very enterprising. One might ask if TDC Enterprise and Property are also expecting users of the Mohuara Library to fund it at $5 a book fund. But I'm not here to speak to that. I could speak to what justification TDC Enterprise and Property can show for the increase in fees. There's been no increase in the facilities or the amenities at the aerodrome. I can go and land at Nelson Airport for a similar proposed fee for the landing at Takaka. I would enjoy friendly air traffic control, fire and rescue services, safety, a choice of grass and sealed runways with ample parking, night lights, and a cafe. I can currently go and land at Westport for half of the fees that are being charged at the moment for Takaka. There I can get fuel, I can chat with the manager with some local knowledge, I can use the terminal building they have there, complete with a lounge, tea and coffee making facilities, full toilet and shower facilities. $5. But I'm not going to speak to that. Takaka Aerodrome has operated since the 1940s. It was administered locally in Mohuara by a user group on behalf of the local council, and that group found funding and utilised willing volunteer input to successfully run the aerodrome for 80 plus years with little to no ratepayer funding. Quite enterprising, I thought. About 3 years ago, TDC took back the reins, and now we're being told a 200% increase in landing fees is proposed. It's not very good. Let's not forget that the Takaka Aerodrome is Crown land that is designated as a public reserve. It is vested in TDC to administer for all the ratepayers and public to use. It is an important and strategic community asset, especially in the event of civil defence emergencies and the like. Crown Property do not expect TDC Enterprise and Property to apply a user-funded cost recovery model here. We, the New Zealand ratepayers, expect that our rates are used to fund these community assets and to provide us with quality amenities for our use and our security. This is one of the things that makes New Zealand a great place to live. TDC is a bureaucratic, top-heavy organisation. I shudder to think of the hourly rate that's directly allocated to the Takaka Aerodrome ledger whenever anyone in council picks up the pen to do work and allocate it to that job number, or how much extra a contractor quotes knowing that it's a TDC job. Costs are going up, agreed, not 200%. What is the biggest cost of Takaka Aerodrome? It's the TDC. TDC Enterprise and Property has got no place trying to remotely administer and manage a small community aerodrome on a cost recovery basis. Takaka Aerodrome is not highly utilised, and the expectation that recreational landing fees should be covering the costs of the operation is ridiculous. TDC has to look in the mirror and see the elephant in the room. A different management model is required for this asset. Given the administration and day-to-day running back to the locally based trust that could easily operate the asset cost effectively with minimal TDC oversight, that would be independent. I understand that the Golden Bay Flying Club would be a willing partner. That's what I wanted to speak to. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Cameron?
One quick question.
Way to go.
The bell person.
You don't like the 200% increase. Would you be acceptable if it went up in stages, say over 3 to 5 years?
What are we going to get for it? Not in line with other areas.
So you're against the increase?
Oh, no, I could see an increase, given that, you know, what's the proposal, what's the plan for the airport? There isn't a 5-10 year development study for the airport. If we could see something at the end of the tunnel, then yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Hill?
So really, are you thinking, I think, I could be wrong, but something like $70,000 in ratepayers money, maybe more than that goes in each year. So it's certainly not a user pays model. Are you thinking that the increase in the landing fees is supposed to cover all the costs of running the aerodrome?
That's the understanding, the justification that I've been given is for the costs of running the airport are high, and that the ratepayer subsidy needs to be minimised and supported. So we need to put up a landing fee. So that's basically the only revenue stream that the airfield has is landing fees and a small amount of ground rent.
Yeah.
But treating it like a cost recovery asset as opposed to a public reserve, which it is not the way to.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty clear that, you know, the landing fee increase isn't going to come close to covering the costs of the improvements that have happened out there recently. And anyway, I just want to check with you whether you were of the mind that that we were looking to cover all of the costs. So it might be good in our next aerodrome meeting to get that made clear around it.
Thank you. Councillor Alice, did you have a very quick question?
Well, very good. I was just, maybe you could drop me an email. I'm just trying to understand why TDC took over the management of the aerodrome 2 years ago.
No,
I thought he said 2 when I heard it. So
it's about 3 years.
Anyway, we can clarify that for you.
Are you on the?
Thank you. Thanks very much, Terry, for coming in. Appreciate that. Martin Potter. Welcome, Martin. Martin, you have 2 submissions, so you can run as long as you tell us. I think you've got a Karakari Marinas Association run in the first one. Is that correct? So just tell us which one you're doing first.
I'll do the Marina Association.
Yep, for sure.
And I will give a general overview there, and Dick Land will present a bill on a few specifics.
Yeah, well, he published it. Yeah.
and my personal one will be quite brief. I'm presenting this verbally because I'm not sure that all the councillors are fully aware of how much the fees are being charged for Tarakari recreational birth holders and how they're arrived at. And there's two main points that I want to get through. Last year, fees went up between 12 and 18%, and this year another 5 to 10%. And we queried both directly through the PTAG group, the Port Tarakari Advisory Group, and through an official information request as to why these fees were being increased, and it was specifically because of all the development that's going on at the moment. And the official information came back saying that the improvements are for the benefit of all users, and I would dispute that. They're pretty much exclusively for the use of the commercial user. The big expense was the working on the wharf, the deferred maintenance. They're now replacing the old wooden wharf. Other matters which we do get some benefit from, supposedly a reliable water supply, increased security, and guaranteed ablutions by the end of 2023. That's what came out last year. Well, we're well into 24, and there's still no ablutions. The reliable water supply is still not reliable, it's restricted. The security might be good for the commercial, but it's certainly not for the recreational user. My dinghy was stolen, and I went through the footage. You couldn't even tell whether the person was a male or female. So they're going up and up, and we're not getting anything for it. We're uncomfortable. And if I was in my surveying role again, and council employed me to do a survey, and you paid me, and 3 or 4 years later I still hadn't done the survey, you'd almost say I was fraudulent. And I suggest that what's going on here is damn near the same. It's been promised, the fees have gone up, and we have got nothing. We've lost all trust and faith in council actually providing what they say. And that's coming from the Marina Association. The second point that I'd like to make is the $12 million that's been borrowed. It's pretty much all gone to commercial. Lighting, security, weighbridge. They're solely for the use of commercial operators. We're not even allowed on the wharf, it's excluded. And yet we're paying supposedly 17.5% of all the overheads. And that we're paying that on the cost of borrowing $12 million. The interest, the repayments. Council has promised to review the funding model, how it is split. And I think my submission is that we shouldn't be paying anything more at the moment until that is. There's a detailed analysis of what the recreational user is using, what the commercial user is using, and then overheads of say fund walls, the breakwaters, some management fees, insurances. They can be split however they should be, and from that arrived at fair costs and fees for the recreational users and the commercial users.
Thank you. Do you want to take questions now at the conclusion
of
yours?
Well, my personal one is, I'll give that.
Yeah,
it's quite
take questions.
I'm on a swing mooring. The fees went up 18% last year, and I spoke to Nick Chin at a PTAG meeting, and he was somewhat surprised that it had gone up 8 inches. And he assured me on a private meeting afterwards, at which Dick Lamb was also present, that there will be no increase in the swing mooring fees this year, because they went up by a disproportionate amount last year. Now I see they're still up 5.5% this year. And my request is that Nick be contacted and asked whether he agrees with what he said, and why they're suddenly going in. No, that's probably really enough. Thanks.
Thank you. Nathan, do we have any questions? Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Martin, for coming in. Just out of interest, have you seen the concept plans for the pollution amenities block at Port Tarapo?
I wasn't at the last PTAG meeting, fortunately, so I haven't seen it.
Right.
But yes, they've been promised to be finished by the end of this year. This is a whole new concept. So promised temporary ones last year, nothing arrived. They've been promised the full final bells and whistles one this year. And I know how long it takes to build things, there's nothing happened yet.
That's why I was going to ask you if you had what you thought of them, but that I won't ask you the second part because of course you've seen them. So thank you. Yeah.
Question from yourself, Martin. So have you been making these issues aware to the Port Tarakari advisory group?
Met with Senior Butler and Nick Chin on occasions, discussed this. It's very much the same issue as what Terry was alluding to. There's a public good in the port, and it's a closed account. So anything which is being done, I mean, I was really annoyed when the public toilets the toilets were going to be open to the public. And I'm paying for those as a berth holder. And I don't see why I should. There needs to be an overview of how the costs are distributed. If you took all the commercial side out, if it all failed tomorrow and all the mussel harvesters are gone, it'd be a very cheap port to run with just the recreation. The cost is in the big commercial industry. It's the wharfage, the health and safety that goes with it. There's going to be roading issues coming in. And it needs to be separated out. In the end, there's 2 more people living aboard boats at Liger Bay in the lagoon estuary area. I know where their ablutions go. Kids swim in that estuary. There's 3 people living on boats at Whitetap. It's going to get worse and worse. People can't afford it.
Thank you. Come to Councillor Hunt. Question. Back to you. Yeah, I thought we did. Sorry. Councillor Hunt first.
So the funding model that's been worked out was a portioning to various users of the port based on the things that they benefit from. You don't support that model?
Actually, but it hasn't been put to it. I mean, it hasn't been tabled at PTAG. The advisory group.
My understanding is that there is a model that's been drawn up and
Okay, we'll come across to Councillor Kilmarnock for his question and maybe you can have an offline discussion, mate.
A very quick one. Thanks for coming along today. And you tell an interesting story there. Thank you. There's different types of ways the boats are moored up onto a marina to a swing mooring. I presume there's different fees and charges for that, or how does that broken down? Or the difference between a marina mooring and a swing mooring?
Swing mooring is now about 2,300 a year. And the berthage is about 7,500, around 6 to 7,000 for a typical 35.
So my understanding is that in the port is that we're extending the marina, not touching the swim moorings are full.
Okay.
Yeah, but the swim moorings have gone up 80% last year and another 5% this year. Okay. So I presume that the commercial moorings have gone up at a different rate.
Last year was 12%. This year they're between 5 and 9.
Thank you. Can we just ask those that are on Zoom, someone hasn't muted their microphone and we're getting a bit of feedback, please. Thank you. Martin, for your submissions, thanks very much. We'll move to Richard William Dick.
My submission included a recent submission, included a copy of the.
We do have your submission.
Yes, well, it's been modified slightly. So there's another version of it here. Thank you for the opportunity of addressing this, and I want to carry on from where Martin just got to with the Port Users Association, particularly the recreational users across the port. And Martin's argument that there needs to be a division in the manner in which costs are reported. And what I've set out here in this document, which you've got perhaps an earlier version of in front of you, is the percentage use that various of the capital items on the balance sheet are in use by the recreational users. And the version that I submitted earlier on, I think, shows that approximately 15% of the capital items in Port Tara Cove have recreational use. The other 85% in the balance sheet are totally focused at commercial use. Now, this is simple economics, and I'm not claiming that it's necessarily representative, but in some basic form of analysis of the capital costs, then that's somewhere close to what the recreational user is getting a benefit from. In other words, should be making a contribution towards the use of those assets. Martin referenced a proportion of the overhead costs as being as calculated by the council and promoted by Nick Chin of being somewhere around 17.5%. But that includes the interest, of course, on the borrowing costs of all the commercial developments. My argument is that we should be valuing the recreational users' fees on the proportion of the assets that are in use by them, and then a proportion to be added on for the cost of management. And as Martin alluded to, the cost of managing the recreational use of the port would be minimal. There would be a part-time manager there, and that part-time manager could well be doing some maintenance on the actual assets that the recreational user are using. And there's very little maintenance taking place at the present time on the plastic marine, which is mostly occupied by recreational marina users. In the latest version of that balance sheet that I've sent around, you'll see at the base of it, there's a calculation of the income from the recreational users on berths and that from the people on moorings, and that equates to around about $300,000 income from recreational users. And the revised adjustment of the proportion of recreational user is using of these assets reduces the capital there back to 1.8 million. That's a return on the capital assets that the recreational user contributes at around 15%. Now, there could well be an argument given that the cost then of the recreational bird should be 15% of what is applied to the commercial users. But I don't think that's realistic, clearly. But what I would say, and in comparison to having one's boat berthed in the Nelson Marina, where there's an ablution block, it's got a library, it's got a kitchen facilities, it's got 3 or 4 showers, it's got multiple toilets, the whole thing is cleaned every day. The marina is in a good state of repair. There's been money spent on anti-slip coatings on all the walkways. The cost of having my boat in the Nelson Marina would be $4,500 a year, and I'm being charged $7,200 at Terracotta with 2 plastic toilets. And in the case of getting to those toilets, some of the people are walking 200 metres actually on the marinas. Well, Bell, is my time up?
Oh,
That's your first bill, I think. Yeah, so
The first bill, I've got another bill.
yeah, in about 30 seconds. But we can see if there's
Now-
any questions if you like.
No, I'd just like to add a few more things if I've got time. I think the recreational people are disturbed too by the largesse that's being extended to the contractors that are working on the commercial development. And as an example of that, there's often they're only working for the odd day of the week, except when they've got overheads themselves, and then they'll work 7 days a week. So people are having to walk extra distance because they can't get access to their berths, which they're paying this fee, which is 30% more than what they would be paying if they were in Nelson with all those facilities.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of the time. So thanks very much for coming in and making this. I do appreciate it.
So question time's off, is it?
Pretty much, yes. We'll move to Richard Malloy, Golden Bay Air.
Richard, morning, councillors.
Thanks. So you've heard the thing. I just wanted to have the
Yes, so yeah, I'm CEO for Golden Bay Air. For those not familiar with us, we are the sole commercial operator at Tarki Aerodrome here. We've been here since 2006. We provide transport, we provide scheduled services, fixed wing from Takaka to Wellington, Karamea, Nelson. We provide services to local community, and we transport about 5,000 passengers per year. I'm here in support of our submission objecting to the similar to Terry, to the proposed increase in landing fees at Tarki Aerodrome here. The proposal, as Terry said, is to increase what is effectively around about for us about $10 per landing, currently doubling it to $20 per landing. We don't object to paying landing fees, obviously. We don't object to an incremental increase in landing fees if it was in a measured way. Other aerodromes have contact us directly, as the report here says, a major user of the aerodrome, and negotiate with us about aerodromes. Nelson has, Wellington are proposing a 20% increase, and we had a meeting with them about it, and we're tiny for Wellington. This has been buried in the 10-year plan. We've had very limited time to actually digest it, and we've got no time at all to pass any of these increases on to our passengers, who would presumably eventually pay these elsewhere in the business. So I, in support of our submission, just request that council go back and just reassess this proposal. As Terry said, he's nicely premised this. The report says that the fees have been benchmarked against a large number of aerodromes around the country. Well, the report that we got in the aerodrome users meeting, which Councillor Hill attends, does not support that at all. It's $10 per landing is about where it should be in 2022. And that report said that there'd been some, I can't remember now, sorry, I put it on the wrong page here, 12% inflation since 2022. So I guess that provides some kind of context to where we believe we should be charged and the contribution we should be making to the aerodrome. It's a strategic community asset. During Cyclone Gita, we and the other operator transported 900 people out of the bay over the 6 days that the road was closed over the hill. And with climate change and everything, that could happen any time. And so I believe the aerodrome is always going to have to be something that's contributed to by rates. As Councillor Hill said, there is a deficit between the users' contributions and the total amount spent on the aerodrome. That's always going to be the case. For Takaka, unfortunately, it's a remote aerodrome for a remote community that doesn't have usage of other aerodromes around the country, and it never will do. But there does need to be a strategic plan for the aerodrome that is missing at the moment, about possibly increasing the revenue that is provided by other developments of the aerodrome. That doesn't exist at the moment. And yeah, that's probably about all I need to say at the moment. We'll allow some time for some questions.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions, please?
The multitask. I'll just stick myself.
Just don't ring the bell.
Anyway, that was 4.5 minutes. So I completely get that, you know, you're opposed to 100% increase in the fees. I've got that. But I think I'm also hearing that as much, you know, that you don't like the increase, there's also been a gap in terms of how the council has worked with your, I'm not sure if it's called an advisory group or whatever it's called, but I may be hearing that there's been a gap in the communication channels. And is that what I'm hearing?
Well, in terms of landing fee proposals, yes. Yeah. I mean, we have, I attend the advisory meetings, and there's good communication about what has been going on. The increases were out of the blue, really. Yeah, there's no sort of, I mean, there was a meeting where it was tabled that it would be happening, I guess, but about a 3-month period between then and now. As we said, other aerodromes around the country do a stage approach to it, so that as a business we can sort of absorb it over a period of time. Not objecting to that. That's inflation. Everybody's got costs of turning the council. We have, as Terry said, there does seem to be quite a lot of money spent on consultants and outside contractors for Takaka. It's an uncertified aerodrome. I would question the amount that we're actually legally need to spend on the aerodrome. It's the aerodrome rules. The part 139157 rules the CIA have applied to certified aerodromes. Takaka is not. So if the council spend this money, then that's, you know, we can't be responsible for as users for those decisions. A lot of them, I don't believe, need to involve the use of contractors. Some reason, yeah, we'll talk about that later, the details of it, but yeah, it could be less. I believe it could be more economically provided visually.
Thank you. I think Councillor Hill was one last question.
Yeah, so the idea that commercial users, which is you, should pay a different rate, different rates in terms of landing fees to recreational users, what do you think about that?
Possibly, although you need to be a little bit careful. I mean, part of the proposal was to charge itinerant users $30 a landing. And I just think that'll have a negative effect on users. They'll just bypass targeting. They really will, you know. We put in a GNSS approach, which is an instrument approach. We spent $25,000 on it in 2011, and we pay an upkeep to that. That allows training institutions such as the Nelson Aviation College, Massey University, and others to train into targeting. Fairly, it is a perfect environment for them to do their instrument training. Some of them land and pay a landing fee. They won't. At $30, they won't. And as I say, as Terry said, there's very little facilities at Target. You know, I mean, itinerant pilots will go and land some others.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think we'll use that time.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
We do have people waiting on Zoom. So thank you. And for councillors, we are slipping a little bit behind, but I think we'll break for 10 minutes rather than 15 to see if we can have a break and if we want a cup of tea, and then we'll move to those submitters who are on Zoom.
Thank you.
Trace, I didn't realise you were here. I thought that Richard was taking it. So there's one more in the room, so we better hear from you. So my apologies. I just thought that Richard had been present above you on that.
No worries.
So if we could have your attention, yeah, my bad, as the mayor would say. So Teresa, warm welcome, and just when you're ready. Thank you.
Right.
Then we'll move to tea break and Zoom. Submissions.
Hold on. Yeah, Teresa, all the test names. And thank you for letting me speak. And thank you for the job you do. I think it is a really hard one. Quite thankless. So thank you. Yeah, I was wanting to speak to the point about the climate change spending with the option A or option B. And the option B in the document was going to be another $17 a year. So the option A said it was going to be an additional $102 to our rates. And the option B was going to be the 102 plus another 17. And yeah, I'm wanting to urge option B to be taken if possible. And I know, you know, there's so much competing of funds, but to me, it seems to be a real false economy if option B isn't taken. And that at Stitch in Time, phase 9, and the document itself says that international understanding nowadays is that, you know, delay in action or not spending, you know, ends up costing far more in the long run. And yeah, and I come today as a ratepayer, so I'll be paying those rates, happily pay 117 extra. And I think any, you know, and more, you know, that in some ways, you know, we sort of need the wartime budget or the COVID budget to throw it at climate change. And yeah, I speak as someone who, I work as an educator. I'm a high school teacher in ECE. I have a sociology master's degree. I know how to research. I'm not at all a client scientist. But the last few years I've been trying to educate myself more because I am, you know, very concerned about the current effects of climate change in the future. I'm spending my time. And yeah, I thought I would draw the analogy to skin cancer. And so my these plasters, because 48 hours ago I had a basal carcinoma taken out, what they think is a melanoma in situ.
And hopefully it's gonna be all fine, 95 to 98%, find out soon. But, as a child in the 70s, and I got sunburnt, and my parents tried their best, but, at high school, I'd run around peak burn time, and I remember going on the Form 2 tramp, and I just forgot my Te Taichanui, I just forgot my hat, and luckily one of the camp mums made me wear, I was mortified, but made me wear a man's handkerchief over my head, because I would just have a scab permanently in summer, and I had a scab permanently here. And but nowadays we know so much more, slip, slop, flat, huge amounts of money was spent on a campaign. And from what I understand in the consultation document, it's that option A is referred, but to spend the extra 17 bucks would mean that more climate education and spreading the word and climate and the council taking more leadership would occur. Also, if option B is not taken, there's going to be a missing out of some solar opportunities. And again, I just think, goodness, for the sake of 17 bucks to spread the word, and because so many people are just so busy with life and haven't had the time, and even as someone really concerned, there's still so much I'd like to know more. It takes time. And so if the council can make that easy to educate people and get buy-in, because we need to make the hard choices. And I was thinking again, like here I am, the 53-year-old with this, and the rest of my life, I'll be taking chunks out. But again, those kids in 50 years to go, why didn't you spend the 17 bucks to get more buy-in, get more action? So that's my message.
Thank you. Any questions? No, but the message received loud and clear, and good luck going forward.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, good one.
So as I said previously, we'll break now for 10 minutes, so we come back at 11:50, and then we'll come to the first of the speakers on Zoom, which will be Gail. All right.
I want to say how good you are with that bell, but perhaps we give it to somebody else.
They're doing a great job.
Great clear on there, Christine, you found.
Last I can add value.
No comment.
It's a bit self-depreciating.
Thank you, Lee, much. So, welcome back, everyone, and welcome to those of you on Zoom. And our first speaker is Miss Gail Gordon on behalf of the Nelson Tasman Business Trust. Councillor Marling has previously indicated a conflict of interest. I'm using the right pronunciation of the name, Gail.
Gail, yeah.
I can't. Once we go,
Is there anyone else?
Are you withdrawing from this?
Well, I've just.
oh, that might be Gail there.
Yeah.
Good morning, Gail. We haven't heard you yet. If you could just speak so we can check what we can.
She needs to mute.
You'll have to unmute yourself. You're on mute.
Is this better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Sorry.
I can't see you now.
I'm having a little bit of. Right, let's go. I think we've got the trifecta now.
Excellent. Thank you. Warm welcome. 5 minutes. Councillor McKenzie will ring the bell at 4.5. Hopefully you can hear it.
Oh, perfect.
I'm going to hear it.
Okay, so thank you firstly for this this opportunity to speak in person. You will have seen from our written submission what we do, the services we offer, and how many business owners we touch each year. What we haven't shared are stories from the business people that have engaged our services. During one of our recent networking events, when asked, "What brought you here today?" one lady simply said, "I work with my husband. I had to get out."
I can relate.
Every one of those sole trader attendees could relate to that comment, just like you yourselves have today, in some way or other. Working on their own or with a partner, Business Assist creates a platform for exactly this, giving our clients across the region a safe haven to meet other sole traders and realise they're not alone. Another example took place last year. We received an SOS call from Councillor Mailing, who is also a trustee on our board. A well-known cafe in the Tasman district had a new owner. They were struggling to make it work financially. Within 1 hour of Councillor Mailing contacting us, we had an experienced mentor on his way to meet with this business owner. Fast forward to today, quite literally, because the owner actually was talking to our one of our staff here this morning. This enterprise has now achieved a profit. Through engaging this mentor, where our mentor manager knew exactly the right mentor we needed, this business is now on the road to success. These are just 2 examples of the impact and importance of Business Assist to the local small to medium-sized business owners in our regions. Our free consultations are another service that we consider vital for our clients. Many a time we have clients that come in visibly stressed and anxious. Through providing a confidential environment, they have the opportunity to discuss what is most concerning for them, receive support and advice, or maybe be referred to other local businesses where appropriate, for example, an accountant or banks, etc., or simply having an external ear to listen to them. These consultations play an important role for our clients. We are always delighted when businesses that we have worked with later go on to be rock stars. Some recent success stories from our mentoring program include Business Award-winning Amy Johnson with Boost Your Learning, Graham Manson from QB's Cheese Bite Snacks that have been accepted by Air New Zealand and are also now available through foodstuffs nationwide. Sarah Bonoma's Golden Bay-based Dancing Sands Distillery is another success story. Some of these, too many S's in some of these words, is another success story that has Business Assist fingerprints in its DNA. To our knowledge, there is no other organisation in this region that offers what we do for free. We rely on the generous funding from TDC and NCC, along with Rata Foundation, and sponsorships from local commercial businesses. With ongoing support from TDC, we will be in good shape to continue to serve our 500 plus local business owners as we all navigate our way through the challenging times that lie ahead. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Gareth? If not, so thank you very much for your submission and serving in this morning. We do appreciate that.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Go well.
Marg Bragans on behalf of the Golden Bay Promotions Association. Marg, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. I'll start. Kia ora tātou. Ko Marg Bragans aho. I am the chairperson of the Golden Bay Promotion Association, and Celia Butler is the TDC rep on our committee. I'm informed that the TDC's plan includes a budget of $30,870 for the next financial year, and this includes an inflationary adjustment. We sincerely appreciate the funding, especially the fact that it's now inflation adjusted. Thank you very much. The association has always sought funding from local businesses to promote the Bay in various ways with the aim of attracting visitors. In recent years, a lot of that funding is being used to keep the visitor centre open. This year we replaced 2 computers, a costly exercise, but necessary. We did have 2 fixed term deposits totaling $28,000, which was the result of many years of small savings. Recently, we broke the larger of the 2, $14,000, so that we could pay our staff that week because there was no money in our bank account. That happened in April, which is very worrying because the summer season had only just finished. We will be invoicing TDC for the $30,000 as soon as possible for the next year. Long gone are the days when the visitor centre could rely on income from accommodation and activity sales. Also, we've lost memberships due to COVID, retirement and closure of businesses. Thank goodness for the support we get from our members. The Kiwi Bank desk we run is very useful to locals and visitors, and the small profit we make helps to keep the doors open during winter and to keep our core staff between seasons. The main purpose of the visitor centre is to welcome and inform visitors to the Bay. A lot of people who walk through the doors are very unfamiliar with what the Bay has to offer. There are things that they need to know, so thank you again for the funding. We would also like TDC to continue supporting Nelson Regional Development Agency, the NRDA, so that they can continue to do the valuable and irreplaceable work of attracting visitors to the district. Articles aimed at attracting visitors to Tasman are in many magazines and newspapers. That takes a lot to set up. There's no way our organisation can do it. We rely on NRDA to do that work for the district. There are many businesses in the area who rely on tourism to stay open, including retail, accommodation and hospitality. Others benefit too, car mechanics and tradies, for example. In Tākaka, there would be many empty commercial sites in the main streets of town and Collingwood if domestic and international tourism stopped. Please keep the funding line open. We would also like TDC to develop a tourism strategy. It's very difficult to find anything on tourism on your website. Or is that what you rely on NRDA to do? If so, great. Please continue to support them. That's it.
Thank you. Happy to take questions. Thank Councillor Murray.
Just quickly, how much do tourist businesses support you financially?
It depends, between 200 and I think DOC pays around 3,000 or 4,000 a year. That's our biggest. And then it drops down to 1,000, but most are 200 and a bit dollars.
So the total income from there?
Oh, I don't know. Can't tell you.
Yeah,
It's about 100 members, so we're looking at probably 25 to 50,000 off the top of my head.
Any further questions? Councillor Hill.
Kia ora mai, Chris Hill here. Still quite a lot of use for the centre, like in terms of how tourists do their business on Zoom and, goodness me, on the internet, you know. It's still a relevant service to be provided.
Yes, we get around 30,000 people, mostly over the summer season. People just wandering in. They don't just wander in to have a look and then wander out. They really come for information.
Yeah.
Because as you say, a lot of it's done online these days.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of time and questions. So thank you.
I've got the Arts Council now.
Oh, yeah, right. We'll move on to that one then.
Is it okay? Shall I start now?
Yes, please.
I'm the acting chairperson of the Golden Bay Community Arts Council. Robert Hewison is the Golden Bay Community Board rep on the committee. The TDC provides around $9,000 each year to help with the cost of running the Arts Council here in Golden Bay. It's been the same amount for a very long time, and I believe it comes from Creative New Zealand. The funding is certainly appreciated. Thank you. We would appreciate being sent information on that funding from Creative New Zealand and how it's used within TDC and distributed around the district. Our other funding comes from applications to various funding agencies. I can't find an arts and culture strategy on your website. If it doesn't, we would love to see TDC develop an arts and culture strategy for the district. It mentions on the website that you've commissioned several different public art projects in the Tasman region to brighten up the streets, parks and other outdoor areas. So it's good to know that you value public art. There are many other forms of art, and we feel that TDC could expand its role in that area. This would involve funding, of course, but a start would be appreciated by many across the district. The last thing I want to mention is that we pay around $2,500 to TDC for the rent of their building at 24 Commercial Street in Tākaka. I'm hoping that this if there's a possibility of that rent being refunded to us each year due to the value of the work we do for the community, as well as the internal flooding issues we have with the building.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah, that's what I did wonder. Marg, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. You've finished?
Yes, that's
Okay.
it.
Thank you. Any questions? It appears not, so thank you very much for your 2 submissions this
Thank
afternoon.
you. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll move on now to Christine Sumner on behalf of the SPCA. Christine, you're there?
I'm here. Thank you.
When you're ready, the bell will go at 4.5 minutes. And
okay.
Just to give you a warning to, if you have want some time for questions, and the final one will go at 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. And you can hear me clearly?
We can.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you for having me. My name is Christine Sumner. I'm a science officer with SPCA. And I know you have our submission, so I just briefly wanted to point out, to touch base on the key things why we've submitted. So we've submitted for support in from council to help us get cats desexed and microchipped in the Tasman district area. There's a lot of welfare benefits from dissecting and microchipping cats. There's also population benefits. We know that cats roam less, are less likely to fight. Importantly, they produce, well, they cannot have unplanned litters of kittens. And this is a big key issue for our organization because cats and kittens are the #1 animal that comes through our center doors, needing help each year. We have approached Tasman Council because we know that there is interest in the greater area that you're in, as well as in Tasman, for more cat management with companion cats, including microchipping. The biggest barrier for getting people to desex and microchip their cats is the cost of the procedure. And we do a lot of work with subsidizing the cost of these procedures to help people out. We want to see cats dissected and microchipped. And when we offer subsidized dissecting and microchipping, people take us up on it often. When we announce we have an initiative, it's our Snip and Chip program. This is where someone can sign up for an online voucher for a heavily discounted cost for the service. They can take it to their local vets that we've worked out a deal with. And then typically when we announce these services are available in an area, they sell out quite quickly, even within that day. The benefits for councils, what we've found is councils want to work with us. We already have this system up and running. There's a set price for each surgery and microchip for the cat. We offer administrating marketing support, and we also, now that we've gone national with our program, offer regular reporting, and this helps out with transparency where your dollars are being spent. Not only does this help improve welfare for cats and kittens, people are happier because they're dealing with fewer issues with unplanned litters of kittens. This also helps promote compliance with bylaws. Should there be a future point in the Tasman district where companion cat owners are required to microchip their cats? We also know that this can help in many ways with the community, with reducing some of these nuisance behaviors that are associated with not being dissected and microchipped. Now I know I have a few minutes and I wanted to leave time for any questions you may have.
Thank you. We do have some. Councillor Maru first.
Thank you, Christine. So if council did make a bylaw about desexing and microchipping of cats, what is the guarantee that there will still be the discount provided and the support to do that going forward? Because at the moment that's the attractant, because it's optional. So how are you resourced if it was that? Will that offer still be there, or does that disappear and just become play and play?
No, our subsidized programs are based on need. They're targeted in areas of high intake. Our goal is to reduce the number of cats and kittens that are coming into our shelters. So whether there is a bylaw that's compelling companion owners to do it or not, we still have issues with intake. A great example is up in Whangarei. The bylaw was passed up there, and we've worked with Whangarei District Council and they've supported us. This is their way of committing to this humane and effective way of companion cat management. And so a bylaw wouldn't necessarily change. It may be some ideal future where there are fewer cats roaming around and most cats are at home dissected microchips. That would change how we decide to have a snip and chip event, but not just because there's a bylaw.
One last small one. Okay. And how is the resourcing of the Nelson Centre to be able to cope with that demand and help? Having just recently trapped 18 feral cats, the capacity is low. So the delay in doing that was vet and SPCA resource. So where will this resource come from for vets and SPCA?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. This is very contingent on our vets being able to support our programs. So it can wane depending on what's going on with our local vet businesses. So I can't speak specifically about the vet's ability, but we do actually work quite closely with local vets. They're very supportive of our snip and chip, and together we have achieved drops in the number of cats and kittens coming through our center. I can't tell you that's specifically because snip and chip. It's multifactorial why cats and kittens end up at PCA. However, we know that the part of that is to do with getting more companion cats desexed.
Councillor Cameron, correctly.
Thank you, Christine, and fully support the SPCA. Very quickly, you say that you're a heavily discounted program for snipping and chipping of animals. I've been told by a neighbour that to get a cat from SPCA was $200. So
that's a different process.
Yeah.
Where they snipped and chipped.
Yeah.
So it's already been snipped and chipped. But my question to you is that if that's heavily discounted, each animal must be in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars of cost before you do your discount. Would that be right?
Yeah. Dissecting and microchipping, so it's going to vary because it is the veterinarians are setting the prices and they have to run a business. So this is part of their business plan and model. What we do is we work with veterinarians to get that price down to, let's say, about $30 for the companion cat owner who buys a subsidized subsidy. So our organization being a charity, we are spending a lot of money to help people out in this space. That's why we're approaching you. We're looking for people to help us as well, to join us. This is not going to be fixed by just one organization. We know it's expensive to get cats desexed and microchipped. And frankly, probably everyone in the room knows it's getting harder and harder for a lot of people with this cost. And so we're trying to find the folks who want to work together and just get these cats desexed and microchipped.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your submission. Thanks for zooming in this morning / afternoon. So we'll move on to our next submitter, who is Donald. Thank you. Donald Horn. Donald, you there somewhere?
Yes, I am.
Good afternoon now. Donald, you know well how to do this, so when you're ready, 5 minutes.
Okay. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are. Loud and clear.
I'll get going. Rate increases and the borrowing cap. The idea that you should be able to borrow more if you spend more seems to be the antithesis of a prudent financial strategy. Yet that is effectively what you are proposing to adopt, with a debt cap based on operating expenditure. You could call it a never-ending spending debt spiral. The projected debt level approaching $450 million means debt per ratepayer household of $15,000. That's 100% more than just a few years ago. It implies more and more of the rate we take being used to pay interest charges and not improving outcomes for ratepayers. Has anyone ever considered saving to spend for nice-to-have facilities, as households have to do? My submission points to how connecting rate increases to an index that is not associated with or related to the CPI divorces you from the reality of how ratepayers' incomes are likely to move. The model you plan to adopt will see more and more of ratepayers' disposable income being absorbed by rates. That is bad for the local economy, which depends on local spending. It's a simple equation. Take more in rates and locals have less to spend on local goods and services. And that's the lifeblood of our economy. The Motueka Pool. I don't want anyone to think I'm anti-swimming. I use the Richmond Pool. I swim at Kaiteri. My concerns are to do with affordability, community demand, and the very large growing ratepayer cost of the deficits being incurred by the Richmond Pool. You will see that I question what community demand there is for a pool. Look at the fundraising so far and ask if that shows real community support. Remember that the community has twice rejected a pool in a council-run poll. Look at the Sport New Zealand survey, which shows just how few of the community can be expected to use the pool. Their survey is clear. 87% of residents are unlikely to use an indoor pool, hardly an indicator of community demand. Look at the Richmond Pool operational deficit. Richmond has a bigger catchment, yet the operational deficit grows every year. Take away the people who will use the Motueka Pool, and the deficit will grow even larger. And in addition, there will be a large operational deficit in Motueka. The Motueka Pool will absorb a large amount of the funds intended for community development over the next 10 years. Is that what the community wants? The community has not had any information about what the alternatives might be, especially in relation to the activities preferred by the community above swimming, walking and cycling, for example. You might call them the growth activities of the last 10 years, whereas indoor swimming is a minority activity and declining. See the Sport New Zealand survey. I believe my suggestion for increasing the utilisation of the Richmond Pool by providing free public transport from Motueka is a good one, much cheaper overall than the capital and operational costs of a new pool, and it increases the utilisation of the public transport system. Motueka West development. I raise this only because of a comment I noticed in the FOC2 submission. I was puzzled to see that the new housing development in Motueka West is to be a prepaid leasehold development with no land vested in council. Apart from the general undesirability of leasehold developments of whatever kind, prepaid or not, the idea that ratepayers will pay for a significant part of infrastructure without any property rights accruing seems very wrong. Surely this is a matter for consultation. And finally, a brief word about council staff. Council staff are an easy target and often criticised in a general way. More recently, they have had to put up with people with extreme intolerant views. It's unfortunate, but unfortunately is also the reality of today. My experience with TD staff is of people who are unfailingly helpful, courteous and responsive. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. That brings us to the end of time. We'll allow one quick question. Thank you, Donald. There appears to be no questions. Thanks very much for your submission this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on now to Mr. Charlie Draper.
I need to wrap them up my phone.
Oh, right. That's probably why it's never
Between yourselves and the speakers.
Oh, it's not Zoom.
No. Hi Charlie, it's Bridie calling again from Tasman District Council. We're ready to hear you speak now so we're in a room with all the councillors around the table and the chair is Councillor Stuart Bryant. So he'll just give you some guidance.
Charlie, welcome and good afternoon. And just when you're ready, if you'd like to begin, you would have 4.5 minutes to the first bell and then the final bell at 5 minutes. So if you just speak to your submission, highlight any points or anything you think you wish, that'll be fine.
Committee there for the airfield, and I'm just afraid that Motueka, I've gone to Motueka a lot of times over the years and stayed at the hotels and the motels, and it was a very busy, vibrant airfield, and we've just got to be careful in areas like in Tern. They changed our fees without any consultation whatsoever, and it's cost us $1,700 each year. So the councillors made fools of themselves by but they didn't have the full information. There was a lot of half-truths and stuff like that, and I want the councillors here to make sure they don't realise they've got the sense or whatever on the face like they have in that curtain, and it's actually cost the ratepayer more money. It hasn't actually worked in the favour. There were lost poor hangers have been sold, the valuations have gone down. We've got people that don't want to call in there anymore, and we would have, I'd say, the same as you, I'd say that we would have had an airfield that would have been as popular as yours, and it's pretty sad. They don't come back. $30 a time for landing there. People can have a choice. Only quarter of an hour, 10 minutes away from the market. They can land on private strips, and I just don't want to see the same thing as the critical bay. You know, the training side of it, people think that they're all correct. There's a lot of students that are very young, 20, they've got big loans. And others future pilots, which we've got a real shortage of, we've got 24-year-olds flying at the right-hand seat when it used to be 40. They know shouldn't get trained, and they don't get snapped up by Air New Zealand or something like that. And we've got to look at top three. Or none of you will be able to go on your holidays, because as the shortest down, it's going to be more. And I just don't think that a lot of people have got a grasp on what your actions and the actions of the curtain have done for the flying community. And people just going out, the old boys go out there for recreation. They might only go for 3 or 4 flights in a day, but if you do it in half-an-hour blocks or an hour block, they miss out. Go through lunch, go maybe 3, only do an hour's flying a whole day or an hour and a half. And if they're going to pay $90 for that when they're on a pension, it's not a fair go. So I really haven't got more to say than be careful that you get the right information from your counsellor, and do your homework very well. And it'll be interesting to see how you're going in a year's time.
Thank you. Maybe. Yes, thank you. That's great. I'll just see if there's any questions for you.
Yep.
It appears not. So thank you. Thanks very much for your submission. And thanks for zooming in this afternoon. And we'll move.
Please take notice.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our next submitter, Mr. Fraser May, on behalf of the Civil Contractors New Zealand. Fraser, you're there, ready to go. Welcome.
Kia ora everyone, thanks for having us. I've also got with me Luke Donaldson, who's our Nelson Marlborough Branch Chair from Civil Contractors New Zealand. We're going to be pretty brief and take the submission as read from the majority, but just give you a quick little map of the issues, I suppose. I think the gravel extraction part of the submission speaks for itself. You know, focusing on the need to extract gravel to manage flood risk, and supports the previous tiered system for extracting gravel. But the main point we really wanted to speak to is around clean fill and the disposal of clean fill in the region. We noted in a recent statement there was a note about escalating costs. What we're looking for is some support from council about what efficiencies we can achieve in some of these costs, and we see clean fill being a really major issue. When we're doing any work on the transport or water network, soil needs to be moved and it needs to go somewhere. There are a couple of issues that we've noted around contaminated land standards. So one thing that we are asking for is a peer review of the science around the standards that have been set around contaminated land. constructing contaminated storage cells is very costly, very time consuming, and they fill up pretty quickly. So, you know, it's really, if there is a risk to human or environmental health, absolutely that should be controlled really well. But those standards need a good look. And so we'd ask that the science behind this current settings around contaminated is really assessed well. So that's one point that we're asking for. I mean, in terms of cost of disposal, there are a couple of things here. I mean, clean fill, of course, is not contaminated. So, you know, the question around efficiency in terms of like how far it's carted is important for contractors. So if they're carting clean fill 100 Ks to go to a site, you might be able to get in a couple of trips, but you're probably not going to get very many trips in during the day. So, you know, if you're working on a project, you're going to have to cart a certain amount of clean fill, and how efficiently you can do that in terms of truck, staff, emissions, wear and tear on the network. Those are all factors that we consider when we're working on projects, and all costs for clients and the region. Really, there are a couple of regional sites that can take it. I mean, I've personally seen these issues in Wellington, but Luke, who's with me, is based in the region. So just wonder if you wouldn't mind saying a couple of words about the regional facilities at the moment there, Luke?
Yeah, so currently we've got, obviously you guys would know, we've got York Valley landfill that can take all the classes of fill. Other than that, really in the region where there's only, there's a few class 5 sites around, one in Cable Bay, one out Richmond Ways. But, you know, obviously we've got contractors that work in Murchison, Golden Bay, things like this. So for them to safely and I guess stick with the new guidelines. So if they've got a class 1 through 4 material, that has to go to York Valley, which is a huge cost. And some of these projects that we're doing are actually council projects. So, you know, we've got no choice to essentially pass on these additional costs for the fees and then all the cartage back to council. So, you know, we're just looking for some support in the area around, you know, does the science stack up, and was all of the factors that we're bringing to the table thought about? You know, going forward, has council got funds allocated to pay for any potential solutions that we can come up with? You know, us as Civil Contractors New Zealand, we're more than happy to work with council to try and come up with some of these solutions. We just want to see it at the table. And yeah, that's I guess what our submission's about here.
Yeah, that's right. And just to build on that, I guess short-term solutions, we just need a bit more clarity from council about the intentions. For contractors are wondering where they should put the bill at the moment and what the plan for it is. So we can see a couple of options, I suppose. You know, one is expanding some of the clean fill facilities that might be at York Valley, and that might be an acceptable, good short-term solution. But I mean, really some more proactive partnership between council and industry about identifying where these sites are going to be. Seems to be an expectation that contractors are going to go and apply for consents, but there's not much appetite to spend years and a lot of money on a failed consent. So, you know, we really need some council support around that. And in the long term, waste minimisation, I mean, things like soil washing, grading, reuse, that's great. We're not there yet. No one's really there yet. So, you know, if there's council partnership around that and use of the waste minimisation levy around that, co-fund solutions, that's great. We can work to that. But that's probably a medium to long-term solution at this stage for Phil. So yeah, that's our submission. I'm very happy to take any questions if there's time remaining.
Thank you, Councillor Nolan.
Thanks, Fraser. 2 questions. One, is it our interpretation of the new regulations that is causing some problems? And 2, class 4 contaminated soil, which is quite different from your other classes, as I understand it.
Luke, do you want to tackle that? The technical details.
So the class 4, yeah, it's different to, I guess, class 5 virgin excavated material, but you know, it's not contaminated. It's just it might be above the background levels that have been recently set by the region. So I guess what our challenge would be with the science and to council is, why can't it be used in a clean fill material. The rules say it can't, but we believe it's perfectly fine to be even reused on some sites, you know, so.
Right. And so what we're talking about there is like if there's some presence of a base metal or something like that, what is the acceptable threshold around risk around that, and actually managing it on a risk-based it's kind of the point, isn't it?
Yeah. That's essentially it. There's no risk to human health with the class 4 material. Class 1 there is, I understand that. But you know, it hasn't got any inert materials in it. It's essentially just dirt that's not virgin excavated material. And what was your first question, sorry?
Well, it was, look, I think it's partly our interpretation. So there's new regulations plus our council's interpretation. So my understanding is urgent work needs to be done on this.
And just because Fraser and Luke, we had you at the landfill submission hearing last week, I'll just give you a little bit of further information very quickly. We had similar submissions yesterday, and the Mayor has instructed that we're to look into this matter further as part of the process for this long-term plan. So that'll be one of the things we will have a good look at going forward. So
thank you.
Great. Well, all we can say to that is thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thank you for your submission. We'll move on to Fred Omars. Overmars. Brendan. Yeah, so good afternoon, Fred, and welcome. 5 minutes. Bill will go at 4 minutes 30.
Thank you, tēnā koutou katoa, councillors. To introduce myself, I'm Fred Overmars, and I'm a signatory member of the Nelson Tasman Climate Forum. I've got 5 slides that I will speak to briefly, but I also just want to first begin by congratulating the council for taking on the climate challenge by the horns in the form of the Tasman Climate Response Strategy and Action Plan. And I wish to speak to my particular submission in relation to that plan, which is brief and it relates to the council's finances. So amongst the plan's principles for guiding action on climate change are these 2: to act boldly. We will display the strong leadership required to address the climate challenges and opportunities for the district. Secondly, climate change is integrated into decision-making. We will incorporate climate change into existing frameworks, plans, projects, and decision-making. And in relation to these principles, I have 2 requests of the council. One is to publicly disclose with which banks it currently holds its investments or finances. And secondly, if it's not already doing so, to engage with its banking providers on their ethical investment policy, and being prepared to indicate that the council may move its banking with fossil-free banks if you find that you do not make progress with this. Why is this important? In brief, and this may not be news to all, but this is a statement from the head of the International Energy Agency in 2021, with fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and gas being by far the largest contributors to global climate change. The agency was explicit about what needs to happen to fossil fuel investments if the world is to achieve net zero carbon emissions energy system by 2050. That is, from today, this is 2021, no investment in new fossil fuel supply projects and no further final investment decisions for new unabated coal plants. Moving to the next slide, please. In Aotearoa, this Aotearoa 350 website has this slide here. It's taken from their work on fossil fuel divestment, and it indicates that we have 4, to be part of 3 banks that they classify as fossil fuel free. In other words, they are climate friendly. TSB, not quite. They don't quite meet the specs. The 4 big Australian-owned banks do not, and you can see here in these columns. The first column, the amount that has been loaned for fossil fuel investments, and the second column is the emissions resulting from those investments. If we take ANZ as an example, it's $18 billion Australian. This includes the Australia and New Zealand operations, and a total of 5.3 billion tonnes of CO2 equivalent. And that, in comparison, our Aotearoa's emissions are 78 million. So we're talking big scale of emissions. In the website, if you dig down, and I hope that the council does take this through further, but you will find further information, and this is all very small print, but it's just to give you an idea that that website does provide further information to take this further. So to conclude, I'm requesting the council to publicly disclose with which banks it currently holds its investments, and if it's not already doing so, to engage with its banking providers on the ethical investment policy, and being willing to indicate that you may move your banking towards fossil-free banks if you do not find satisfaction there. Thank you, and I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you. Fred, do we have any questions? Have you tried to see if theirs are publicly disclosed? Because I believe they are, but no doubt in due course we'll respond to your submission anyway. We may not advertise, but they're publicly available when we bank with.
Thank you, and I'm sorry the voice quality wasn't great, so I wasn't able to pick up your question.
Well, it's just if you are aware that we do make it publicly available through our public information, our meeting agendas, who we bank with, particularly for our full council agenda.
I'm sorry, and I don't want to hold up the council's time, but
right.
I'm not getting that.
Okay. Well, what will happen is that we'll respond to your submission in due course and with an answer to some of your questions.
Thank you. I heard that, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. We'll move on to the next submitter, who is Steve Udy. Steve, I saw you there somewhere. Welcome. Good afternoon. And Steve, you have 5 minutes.
Oh, Stuart, thank you. Yeah, thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I have very little to add to the written submission, and I really just wanted to turn up as an opportunity for councillors to ask questions. I guess the thrust of the written argument that I presented was that the much of Tasman, most of the residents have access to and take for granted access for community facilities that are fit for purpose and for community services. And Tapawera does not have access to that at the moment. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. See Councillor Hill and then Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Steve. Can you hear me?
I can.
Chris Hill, Golden Bay Ward Councillor. I know that in Golden Bay here, when we've had some sort of, good important projects happening, there can be a bit of a split happen in the community for people who are really making it happen and others that get a bit resistant. Just wondering if generally in the area at Tapawera that there is a general sort of consensus and motivation around the project.
I believe there is. Tapawera Connect, another community organisation, has carried out extensive consultation with the community. And as you know, you can create the opportunities for the community to feed back, and sometimes they will and sometimes they won't. But the feedback we've had from those that did engage is overwhelmingly supportive of the hub. There have been some dissenting voices, and those seem to be around nostalgia for the existing community centre building, which has historic significance, I guess, for some of the older members of the community. There are some older members of the community who have put their full support behind the new hub. So in terms of my position as chair of the community council, the feedback we've had is overwhelmingly supportive.
Right, thanks, Steve.
Councillor McKenzie.
Hello, Steve. Christine here. Look, I mean, it's maybe just adding to Councillor Hill's question. So, you know, there is some narrative around Tapawera is dying. People can't afford anything. You're not going to be able to produce the volunteer effort that might be needed. So, you know, what do you respond to that in terms of where you see the hub fitting in?
Part of the difficulty of attracting volunteers is providing a safe and fit for purpose, warm, healthy environment for people to volunteer in. The current community centre doesn't provide that. Many of the residents in the broader Tapawera community, I think there are about maybe 300 in the township itself and a couple of thousand in the broader area around, you know, the catchment for Tapawera. Many of the local residents have been there for many, many years, some of them born there. And I don't expect that they would be willingly leaving the community. So in terms of the Tapawera, talk about Tapawera dying, I don't see the community dying at all. I think it is thriving, and it is looking for ways to support the community that are lower cost, both in time and money, than they can currently access.
Thanks for that, Steve.
Just a question from yourself, Steve. The report, I'm not sure if you in this submission talked about a number of the other buildings, and it was raised yesterday as a question, but just wondered what your view is if it's similar to mine, that most of those have probably got limited use or getting to the end of their life or dated or all three.
I'm not personally familiar with most of those buildings, but the feedback I've had from many people who are, and Peter Phillips, I think, encapsulated very well in his written submission, are that most of the buildings are aging. They're in need of repair, need of financial support to bring them up to just weatherproof and safe standards, let alone a comfort level standard. You know, when you've got buildings that were designed and constructed 30, 40, 50 years ago, the level of insulation and the access for mobility impaired people and so on just wasn't as evident as it is now. A fit for purpose building, I see it, would be readily accessible, would be warm, would be low maintenance costs, and I don't see any of the current community buildings in Tapawera providing anywhere close to that.
Thank you, Steve. That brings us to the end of the time. So thanks very much for zooming in this afternoon and answering the questions and speaking to your session. We do appreciate that. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
We'll move on to Dale McDonald. Oh, sorry.
Dale with the
Dale, we can go to Dale, please.
I'm here. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Obviously, I know a few of you already, so it's lovely to see your faces there. I live in Wakefield, and as such, I'll be speaking specifically about the potential Wakefield community facility. So I'm involved in the community in a number of different ways, and I also submitted on behalf of the Wakefield School Board of Trustees. But today I want to talk from a disability perspective. I work for Paralympics New Zealand in the performance space, and Tasman is the only region in New Zealand who doesn't have any pre-high performance or high performance para athletes, that is, athletes tracking towards the Paralympic Games. I mean, that's due to a number of reasons, and one of those is a lack of a central hub and a place where people with disabilities can feel like they belong. And I think we have an opportunity here to create a region first facility with total accessibility that is not just physical access, you know, the bare minimum of which is ramps and accessible toilets and low etc. We can do better than this. I think a place that really features accessible design components and offers opportunities for sports that most people have never heard of. For example, goalball and boccia. These are Paralympic sports. You and we can't offer those in our region currently. So in terms of, from a sense of belonging, well-being improves from that, and a community is built and performance follows. So I think, we have this really neat opportunity to design a facility that offers all of those things. And yeah, I am really, really excited about that, from my role working in Paralympic sport. And I think, we had this neat opportunity. So I just wanted to, I outlined that in my submission, but I was, really happy to speak to it too. And while I'm here, also offer my support from a Board of Trustees perspective. We see this as a huge opportunity for our school community too.
Thanks very much. Councillor Hill, you have a question?
Kia ora Dale, Chris Hill here, Golden Bay Ward Councillor. In terms of the design process so far, do you feel that the group that's sort of progressing the project has a mind to what you're speaking to?
Yes, I do. I've had really early discussions with the steering group, who are very, very supportive and open of creating a space that is truly accessible. I think a lot of our building design is stuck way back in the past, and at one point we were world leading in our design, making sure we always had accessible physical accessibility, but things have progressed a lot since then, and now we can, obviously redesigning buildings is difficult, but if you're at the outset you're taking into account all of these things, and yes, I have had those early discussions, and they are very supportive and open to that.
Right, good to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor McKenzie.
Oh, I nearly rang the bell on myself. Dale, do you think that, given your knowledge in the area that you work in, do you think that there would be any additional funding opportunity that would open up if we were able to demonstrate that we really were catering for people with disabilities?
Yes, potentially. I'm not an expert on the funding streams, but I certainly have contacts with people who are, and so yes, potentially.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appears there's no further questions, so thanks very much, Dale, for zooming in and answering the questions and speaking to your submission. That's appreciated. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And we'll move on to our next speaker, Simon Wall, on behalf of Apollo Projects. Simon, I think I saw you there.
Yep, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Good afternoon and welcome.
G'day, kia ora koutou. Thank you, Worship, and thank you, councillors, for having us to speak.
They're just laughing, Simon, because I'm the deputy there with no aspirations.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh well, lucky. Sometimes you get the good side of the story, so that's all right. I shall carry on. Just like to introduce Apollo Projects. We're a specialist design and build construction company. We've got experience delivering community sports, recreation, and aquatic facilities throughout New Zealand. We've we've reviewed the consultation documents and made a written submission, which I understand you've had the opportunity to read, and so I don't want to repeat too much of what's already in there, but the main thrust of what we put forward was to highlight our knowledge in delivering projects for similar organisations as Tasman District Council, and to really encourage TDC to know that there are better ways to deliver projects and deliver value to their communities. Interestingly, just listening to Dale talking right now is a classic example of we're raising the bar of what can be delivered without undue additional cost, should just be how the building industry works. Apollo's worked with a number of different councils throughout the country and delivered projects that we have seen as delivered for significantly lower cost than some of the budgets that are assigned for similar projects in other places around the country. I guess the highlight from our point of view, and noting that there's several community building projects listed in the LTP and the consultation documents, is that the key to it is being able to develop realistic budgets in the first place, and that's not realistically high, that's realistically low. Ensuring that the programming of projects together to be able to deliver them efficiently is maximised. Utilising design and build as a method of delivery, which mitigates the risk of cost escalations once the contract's commenced. And obviously the last one, which is really highlighting the end users and the predictions against utilisation for projects, and having the confidence that these projects that get delivered are well loved and used community facilities that more often exceed their usage predictions. I thank you all then for giving us the opportunity to present and open for any questions.
Thank you. Just a couple from myself, Simon, to start with. Do you have any projects particularly that you could refer us to across Nelson, Tasman that you've been involved with?
Yes, we not in the sports space. We delivered the Golden Bay Fruit facility in Motueka 2 or 3 years ago as a design and build project. And we've got out a number of winery projects in Blenheim in the Marlborough region.
One of these groups is going to need to act pretty quickly, and I may talk to you about this offline, but would you be prepared to talk to the groups about how design and build works?
Absolutely, yes. That's something that we're often doing, particularly with councils, and we've had a couple of recent examples with Selwyn District Council. Not quite so recent, but they went in through a design and build process, and through that, Waitaki Council elected to do a design and build on their event centre, which hopefully will get finalised pretty soon.
Excellent, thank you. Councillor McKenzie has a question.
I'm not exactly sure how this works, Simon, but are you on the Tasman District Council's preferred supplier panel list?
I'm not sure either for Tasman District Council. Typically, our experience is that there is often panels for smaller works, a lot of the road maintenance and things like that with most councils, but larger capital projects don't tend to have exclusive or pre-selected lists of contractors.
Oh, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you. Simon, I'll be in contact. We've got some contact details, have we? Riley, thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're done. Riley.
Oh, if there's any additional information
Yes,
that you want
just
to
come
provide.
So come to Councillor Mayor first.
Well, I think this goes from yesterday as well, so that was the airport changes.
Yeah, we came out, it's open meeting.
Yep.
Meeting was present.
And then the Terracotta one, in terms of, it appears some promises made, but it'd be good to talk to the staff about that as well, to get something back. The Terracotta recreational users.
Councillor Hill and then Councillor McKenzie.
Aberfield's pen charges, I remember a conversation around that, and I thought they were going to be reduced. So just like an update on if anything is more current than that. I've got a couple of things. Was there ever indicated a floating jet aviation ramp at the port? And I think the port development plan makes it clear. We're pretty sure there wasn't a promise of that. Aerodrome. So I just think it'd be helpful to get some accurate, just basic details of income from landing fees, the amount spent at the aerodrome over the last 3 years, and what the ratepayer contribution is to the aerodrome. And is there actually allocating of staff hours? If somebody rings up and talks to a staff member about the aerodrome, does that get tabbed on somewhere and then a bill sent through and put against the aerodrome? I didn't think so, but you know. And I've just resolved some questions I had about the report and the model for apportioned funding there, which I think is confidential still. So looking at it being perhaps declassified at some point, just an email from Nick. And there's an idea that the recreational fees include paying towards the interest in the loans for commercial development or commercial loans, which was through Noah. And I just was wondering about the Arts Council rate of 2,200 per annum, and why that wouldn't be more of a people forming thing like we do with most community groups of a couple of hundred, 500.
300.
300.
300.
Thank you.
Councillor Henry.
No, mine's been asked now, thanks.
Councillor Dow.
Yeah, just one of the submitters spoke about what only being taken over by the council for the last 3 years. So we get a clarify. We've looked after as long as I've been here. That's the leading, isn't it?
And can we have a follow up with that one, Brian? Can we just have clarification around how the charges got and the figures that have been floated around 200 and 300 percent correct and how they come about? Councillor Mahu.
Yeah.
Maru.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Your worship.
Yeah. I saw your eagerness in terms of design and build with the Apollo. I'm actually interested in design and build for all of those projects in terms of starting to the hands. But I'm wondering if there's some that are interested early, whether they could have a glaze over those feasibility studies. So there's hints in Apollo about realistic budgets and not overinflated budgets, which has been a constant flavour of the three with Wicked Ward councillors. So that would be handy. And to answer, Councillor Hill and I had a sideways. So there was one council poll for the pool that was weaker, which was narrowly lost, and then there was another council vote slightly later on. But one poll that was questioned in terms of it went to the rate payer holder, not the property tenant. So it was only the ratepayers that got a vote. So if you rented a house, you didn't get a say in that poll, which was confusing at the time. And the only other thing is that I wasn't sure, and I've sort of asked Richard, is before we point all the fingers at staff in terms of the aerodrome fees, I'm not sure if that's something that we've done or a document that's come to us and we've just gone as part of the fees and approved. But I think we just need to be careful in terms of we've got what we've got and it's gone out, we've approved it. But now we're getting some other information. But like, I just want to tone the direction to us, any staff in terms of us, we've had a whole lot of information. And now I'm understanding the consequence, which is what the process is.
Yeah, well, I guess it's like all of them, it's put out for consultation. Yeah. We'll see how they handle it. You can decide it.
Okay, so there was talk from Marg with regards to a tourism strategy and an arts and cultural strategy. I know we have had some dialogue around an arts strategy. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what this tourism strategy may or may not look like.
Or with the NRDA.
And just to follow on for that, Riley, just whether the funding she was talking about from TDC was for 1 year or for the 3 years. And if it applies to all the information.
For the commercial association, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but I think in the last term we got the donors, so they had some security for 3 years.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if it's information that they can be clarified. Councillor 40, you've finished. Councillor Evans.
I was just wondering about our classification of the soils and why it doesn't align with what national policy is and we're going to be.
Disposable soils.
Yeah.
Yeah, there needs to be some, and I think Tim's aware of that.
Yeah, the question is is it something that we've landed on, or is it because national direction seems to have been adjusted? So we're just going to line up where our position, what it is, and where it comes from.
Because that has quite an effect on the
Yes, he's certainly aware of it.
Councillor Kimura.
Brett Overmar's comments about the banking, where we're banking, and we said to him, have a look at our website. If you haven't got it on the website, I'd like to know how do we get hold of it or where.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it was necessarily on the website, it certainly is through public information like our agendas, it shows when we have.
It's in the, it's in
It's
the.
treasury reports and financial reports.
Found so many different reports.
Yeah, okay. So I think, yeah, well, once again, Brian, we can have a full page.
That's what I'm after.
Councillor Green, did you have any matters you want to further information on?
I was interested in a comment made about Ashburton. It would be good to validate that in terms of modelling, because that seemed to be quite a dramatic impact on customer use from increasing. And if that's the trajectory, then that's probably something we should be aware of in part of our decision making, because I don't think we've had any data on a trajectory basis or modelling of what the price increases would be on the aerodrome. So that would be quite useful. I was just making a comment earlier that I think we have disclosed that in our, this is the banking question, in our treasury and finance reports.
Yeah, I agree.
But it does raise the question that if we do want to go down that track, we may have to change our bank.
No, just to get feedback at this stage. Anything further, Councillor Green? Right, anyone else in the room? Thank you for your attendance. And closing carry here, Robin, and you talk to us about it here.
No?
No.
Oh, no, Chris. Karakia? Oh, Karakia Tato. Excuse my back while. Tāwhiri mai ngā hoa o te taio, mai tapatua ni te tapu ka nai kia rangi nimi tu iwa nei tūturi whakamau kia Tina.
Tina.
Oh yeah. Thank you. So you're adjourning now? We've got a time at Frontier for us to see the Waka.